Bone, joint, and muscle injuries, they can happen without warning. That's why UPMC Orthopedic Care provides convenient walk-in access at our injury clinics throughout the region. No appointments are needed, just walk in for expert evaluation and exceptional care by our team of orthopedic specialists. Clinics are located in Carlisle, Lidditz, Harrisburg, and Enola. For directions and hours or to learn more, visit upmc.com/injuryclinic.
The new podcast, In the Shadow of Princeton, starts as the matriarch of a prominent Princeton family is found stabbed to death in her locked basement. Investigators look from a serial attacker to her family to Princeton University students. One hot-blooded investigator sees a conspiracy. Is he way off base, or does privilege let you get away with murder? In the Shadow of Princeton is available wherever you get podcasts, or you can binge it ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
Alrighty, welcome into another edition of the PA High School Football Report. Eric Epler of PennLive alongside colleague Dan Sostek. We are taking a break from the belly of PennLive HQ because it is, ta-da, it's election day, Dan.
Yeah, it is. And we're going to give you a full, but no, I'm just kidding.
Full breakdown, yeah. I'll give you my whole ballot slip. Yeah. Not at all. Well, of course, election day means that Merlin, our production wizard, Megan Laven Heaton, Esquire, has left us. She left us a few biscuits and some water to fend for ourselves. So that's what we're doing. We're going to do our best to try not to burn anything down. Dan's going to try to not engage a switch that should not be engaged. So we make it through this okay. I think we'll be all right, but who knows? Anything can happen with us in electronics. So, Dan, how you doing, my man? First of all, I want to know, did your Pickles Cage Halloween costume win any PennLive swag at all?
No, apparently they didn't. They didn't think that just wearing a one suit costume was worth any sort of monetary prize. So we'll try again next year.
Well, I thought it was good. Yeah, you only won in uniform. I mean, you only won in a costume.
Yeah, that's why I did it. I thought it'd be funny.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should get at least a mug or a koozie or some kind of. We don't have great swag, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
But, another T-shirt, hoodie, something like that. Give the young guys something. I'll see what I can do for you. All right, Dad, before we move on here, let's, and all the excitement, obviously, surrounding the start of the postseason last week, we forgot it's sort of a handful of shout outs, some things that we wanted to mention, some guys we wanted to mention. Obviously, you did not get a second season. Their run with the program was over after 10 weeks. So we're going to take care of mentioning some of these guys and some tidbits here before we move forward. So, Dan, I'm going to start with you and just a guy or two that we had really, it was really fun covering them this year and obviously seeing what they were doing from week to week. And obviously their teams did not make the playoffs, but we thought it important to kind of mention them here, one last time.
Yeah, I think the first one it's hard to look past is Grant Hall for Big Spring. But
Yeah.
I mean, the Big Spring tweeted out a post about him. He holds basically every record for the Bulldogs program. Was part of that team that pulled off one of the bigger upsets in recent years when they beat Steel High. He's just been an impact kid, one of those kids that few inches taller, and he's looking at D1 offers probably. He's just a gamer who can do it all. I think we've said it a bunch on this podcast that you don't see kids running backs that are as good pass catchers in high school as kids as he was. And that was so crucial to their offense. I think he led their team in receiving yards, rushing yards. And he just every week it felt like you got an A+ performance from Grant Hall. So really fun kid to, I only got to see him play a couple times, but always fun because I always do the mid-Penn football top performers every week. And he was always on there every single week. So a great career for Newville's finest.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think he went on a string of maybe a month, 4 weeks in a row, where he was above 200 yards rushing. Like that doesn't happen.
Yep.
It just really doesn't happen. I mean, like I said, we talk about, how old I am, and I am old. But, I don't know if I've seen a running back go over 200 yards. And obviously, I've covered Musa Smith, I've covered Shady McCoy, I've covered, a lot of just unbelievable running backs in our, Metroplex here. And I don't think I've ever seen a guy do 3 or 4 weeks in a row where he's over 200 yards. I mean, that's just impressive. I don't care. You could talk about schedule and teams they're playing. I don't care about that. I mean, that's just being a workhorse for that program and putting the kind of numbers up that Grant Hall did and giving his team a chance to win, week to week, is pretty damn impressive.
Yeah.
So another guy we have on the list, Dan, we came up with a list here of 5 guys. Is Carter McCauley, the wide receiver slash D-back slash LB. I mean, he did a little bit of everything. He really was Greencastle Antrim's jack of all trades. 9 for 140 and 2 tutties seemed to be like his hallmark card every week.
Yeah, I just what can you say? They really obviously shifted to more of a passing attack this year, which I think really kind of let him, spread his wings a little bit.
Yep.
And we saw the type of player he is. Obviously, his dad's the head coach, but I don't think it was a, coach's kid thing. You get it, you put up the receiving numbers he did. It's definitely legit. And he's a 3-sport athlete too. He's good basketball player, good baseball player too.
Yep.
So he's got a bright future ahead of him. But yeah, really, it was nice to see him really emerge this senior season.
And so much of our conversation to the last couple of years at West Perry was about Marcus Quaker, was about Eli Gooding, and this guy Brad Hockenberry for West Perry really just became the life force for the Mustangs. And granted, they weren't as big up front, they weren't as deep across the line, and obviously there was some trouble there, and Hockenberry actually missed some time due to injury. But as far as performance, when that guy was on the field, it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and obviously he missed sort of the end of the season this year to some injuries and
Yep.
things. And we talked a lot about him as a rusher, but he's just as good as a linebacker for them. He was probably could make an argument he was their best defensive player as well. Just a real gamer who I wish we got to see what his numbers would have looked like if he played a full year, because probably would have rivaled Grant Hall for that and Caleb Snyder for that rushing yardage lead in the mid pen.
Yeah, when you knew he was getting the ball and was still being productive. I mean, that's Grant Hall in a nutshell as well. So yeah. So shout out to Brad Hockenberry of West Perry. Unbelievable season and career there. Another guy too we talked a lot about because Gettysburg had been sort of, last year they had a pretty good offense because of this guy and a couple of running backs. Brady Heiser at Gettysburg, another coach's kid, obviously running the show down there. But, Heiser really put this offense on his shoulders. He's a really strong dual threat kid. And, Gettysburg just, again, they're sort of, I guess their sort of lockup too was just stopping offenses. They had trouble playing defense, and they got a little bit better on that side of the football, but ultimately that cost them. But Heiser had a tremendous year as well.
Yeah, you mentioned it too, the dual threat ability. He's been one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the mid pen over the last few years. So I know that he's got interest from some Ivy League schools, some other kind of on the verge of FCS D2 kind of area, but you don't find too many 4-year starters at quarterback in the mid pen. So uh, always weird when you see them go, because then next year when we do our previews, we probably start typing up Brady Heiser for Gettysburg out of habit, and then you're like, oh
Right.
wait, he graduated. So
Exactly. The last one, I think you and I are big fans of this kid. For me too, just because I see a lot of him in the baseball season. He's a tremendous baseball player, and that's where his future is at the next level. But you know, he's just a game on the football field. He's just a gamer.
Yeah.
He's a kid you want in there because he will fight tooth and nail to get you that extra yard, and he finds a way. It's not always a fluid sort of transaction, moving the chains for him. But Bennett Seacrest at Cedar Cliff, I'm definitely going to miss watching him play.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a kid that is, again, another really experienced kid that has played a lot of football for Cedar
Yep.
Cliff and kind of does a little bit of everything. It was cool this year to see him really get a chance to form that connection with his brother Blake.
Yep.
You saw it a little bit in years past, but this year they really got it kind of going. And yeah, like you said, he's got plenty more Cedar Cliff athletics to go, but his football career is over. And I mean, he had to navigate probably the toughest year Cedar Cliff's going to have in a while in terms of being that first Mid Penn Commonwealth season, which was always going to be a real adjustment period for them. And I thought he did about as well as one could ask him to do, given the defenses he was facing and the step up in competition. So yeah, just another good QB that's heading out the door.
Yeah, absolutely. My last shout out, Dan, is not to a player but to a field, Mitchell Field in Lewistown. Now, if you've never seen a football game at Mitchell Field, which is the longtime home of the Mifflin County Huskies, then shame on you. It was a glorious neighborhood feel, natural surface, of course, but the Huskies are moving into a new facility at their high school next season. But the good news is they really ended a long run at Mitchell Field in style, 21-18 win to close the regular season over Redland. So that's an impressive nugget. You always wanted to win the last one at the place you called home, and Mitchell Field was one of the best neighborhood, just sort of old school sort of fields that we have left in the Mid Penn. Yeah, it was always a joy to go up there. I only got maybe 3 games up there, I think, in my entire, because Mifflin County has not always been, a mid Penn program. But yeah, it's been really cool going up there to watch games. So long, Mitchell Field. We will absolutely miss you. And the people there were great too. I mean,
Yep.
it was just awesome. It was a great experience to go up there on a Friday night. All right, Dan, we're going to move on. Before we take a look ahead, obviously we are knee deep now in the postseason. Everybody's going to be in action. We had a lot of buys, a lot of first round buys in District 3 playoffs last week, but we did have some action, and you and I both had a game. I wanted to ask you first about your matchup. It was Cumberland Valley coming up with a big win against Governor Mifflin.
Yeah, I mean, it started inauspiciously for Cumberland Valley. They Governor Mifflin's first drive, 16 plays, 16 runs, 9 minutes and 20 something seconds, score a touchdown, had a couple fourth down conversions, and you kind of start side-eyeing. You're like, uh-oh, is this going to be this grinded out ugly game where Governor Mifflin can milk the clock and run that kind of weird veer wing T hybrid offense that they love to run? Nope, because Colton Stamey, the freshman quarterback who has taken over for the last couple of weeks, just diced up Governor Mifflin's secondary for the game. He threw 4 touchdown passes. Talked with Josh Oswald after. He said, when you're getting ready for an offense like that, when you're practicing against it, just pretty good usually works, because no matter how good the scout team is, it's never going to run as well as that team that you're facing is. And so the first drive, he kind of hammered back, the fundamentals, how to defend that defense. And the rest of the game, it was pretty much they couldn't consistently move the ball. And anytime they tried to pass, did not end well. So big win for Cumberland Valley. Brody Pines also had a big game moving out to wide receiver. I wrote a little story about that, talking about how versatile that kid has been this year, taking over running back when he's kind of more receiver like his brother, but they need him to play running back. And then Eric Barbacci this game ran for over 170 yards. So big win. And now we get, for the 5th time in the last 3 years, Cumberland Valley Manheim Township.
Yeah, it's, we talked earlier too about, when you don't have the threat of the pass, and Mifflin just does not throw the ball, you're pretty much, 3rd and 6 or worse, you're pretty much done. So it's just, Cumberland Valley could sort of lock in on that. And obviously Mifflin does a good job of rushing the football, but at this point in the season too, you've got to have that, at least have that threat to kind of have a chance to move on. And Governor Mifflin just did not have that threat. And sooner or later you can figure it out. Obviously, a coach like Josh Oswald and the smart guys he has along the line of scrimmage too on the defensive side. You figure out how to control it and put them sort of behind the chains. So they did a great job of that. 44-12. They are moving on. I was high atop Steelton. Dan, I got to see the rematch between Steel High and Upper Dauphin. The Rollers a 10-point winner during the regular season. They extend that to 20 points here on Friday. It was 34-14. Interestingly enough, Upper Dauphin was up 14-0, had all momentum, and then a fumble on their third possession gave Steel High a little bit of juice. And then all of a sudden, boom, we're 14-all at halftime. And Steel High really controlled the second half. Jerome Ross Jr., who most probably don't know, transfer from CD East. He transferred late, so he had to sit out. This is only his fifth game in uniform for Steel High. 220-plus rushing yards. Andrew Irby, head coach Andrew Irby, really, started feeding him the ball up the middle, and that offensive line for Steel High did a really, really good job. And some of the same guys I thought were excellent on the defensive side, and not just the second half. They, Caleb Snyder, we talked a lot about and his running ability for Upper Dauphin. He's a tough hombre to bring down. He really is. And they don't sort of sugarcoat it. They run between the tackles. And they really limited him to a few chunk runs. And chunk runs, I mean more than 10 yards. He had 100 yards on the day, but I think it took him, 16 or 17 rush attempts, and some of those came obviously in the waning seconds with Steel High up too. But again, Yamir Caesar for quarterback for Steel High continues to impress, particularly with his legs. 2 rushing touchdowns. The Rollers did a pretty good job here overall. Didn't really kill themselves with big penalties. Now it was windy, but I will say this: I think moving forward, Steel High is going to have to. He's going to have to get a little bit better in the passing game. They're going to need that somewhere down the road here. Who knows? It may be this week, but all that aside, I think Steel High played a pretty complete game against Upper Dauphin and won 34-14. So congrats to the Rollers. They are moving on to the D3 2A championship round against Lancaster Catholic. We will talk about that game shortly. So, all right, Dan, let's just break down a couple of these District 3 playoff games coming up this week. We'll start in 6A. You had mentioned the Manheim Township Cumberland Valley rematch. That will take place Friday in Neffsville. And this obviously is a rematch. These guys have played, 5 times in 2.5, 3 years, 6 times maybe. And I was there last year for the District 3 semifinal game in Neffsville. The barn burner where Cumberland Valley almost came back and pulled the upset. But this one is going to be another howitzer, no matter how you slice it. Obviously, CV got action last week. Manheim Township was on a bye. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, I think that Manheim Township is, when we do these picks, they're going to be a pretty significant favorite just because Cumberland Valley's been a hard to peg down team this year. That win over Harrisburg just kind of tells you where they can be because of how good that defense is. I think the defense is legit and has been really good all year long. Even a lot of times when they've given up points, it's kind of because the offense is stalled out and put them in some tough positions. And Manheim did not end this season well. They dropped their first game of the year. So Cumberland Valley has the momentum because they played the week before. I still don't know if Cumberland Valley is going to be able to completely shut down that Manheim Township rushing attack. Declan Clancy is probably one of the most. I don't know how he's underrated, but it still feels like he's a little underrated. He's just been good for a while now. But man, I really liked what I saw from Colton Stamion. I get it; it's a completely different defense. This Manheim Township defense has shut down really good teams, and Colton Stamion didn't really. He wasn't under a ton of duress um, last Friday. He's probably going to be under more duress, even with Tyler Merrill at Big Oak at left tackle.
Right.
Um, but I think they're going to have to. I think they're going to have to win with the passing game because I don't know. Um, I Eric Barbacci played great, but I think they're going to have to make some big plays in the passing game to keep the game close because I think Manheim Township's going to do what Manheim Township does.
Yeah, I think we both agree that this is a different looking Cumberland Valley squad now in
Yeah,
comparison to that opening day game where they lost 42-14 to the Blue Streaks. And of note, too, that game was at Chapman Field,
yeah,
not on the road. Colton Stamey, I think, coming in has given them a spark that they absolutely were looking for all season. He may be the fourth guy to actually take a snap under center uh, for them, but he has really come in. And as a freshman, that's really unbelievable to me. Um, to me, this one feels like Cumberland Valley has to initially weather Manheim Township's short passing game. They're very precise. They map things out. They sort of try to stretch, at least give guys stretch the defense a little bit to open up some things for Declan Clancy. But the key is Clancy's really, really good out of the backfield too. So this Cumberland Valley defense is really going to be pressed. I know they've been really good at times. I know they're legit. Um, but to me, the Eagles have seemed to play, beyond themselves one week and then just regress the next. I don't know if that's just because of the scheme they're playing, the athletes they're going against. I don't know. Um, what I do know is Cumberland Valley's not going to be surprised or not going to be caught, off killed here, because of the pressure cooker that this one is. I mean, this is a lot of pressure walking into their place, trying to bump up the team that's had your number. So I think in that respect, they're going to be ready. But I just don't know if overall if they can set their right tempo. I think Cumberland Valley can't play from behind here. I just don't. I just don't think that works. So I think they got to have to get some sort of, maybe +2 in the turnover rate, something like that, to kind of, get out in front and maybe hopefully stay in front for them. So this should be this is going to be a lot closer. I mean, it's going to be a lot closer than it was in week one, and I think even the Eagles playing last week and coming up with that big win is a big plus. I don't like the first round buys. I don't like.
no, neither do I.
I just think you lose you any steam you've built, you lose. I think you relax a little bit, and it takes you a little longer than in week 12 to kind of get yourself back in gear. Maybe it takes you a quarter, maybe it takes you a half. And in the playoffs, that's very dangerous to me. So I think if I'm Manheim Township, and I think Mark Evans would probably agree, he probably would have rather played a game last week to keep everybody in tune and keep that schedule going and all those things that we talk about. So we know Josh Oswalt's a great motivator, among other things. So I don't know. I don't know who I'm gonna, what sort of the scenario or who I'm gonna pick in this one. I mean, I think we both agree Manheim Township deserves to be the favorite. I don't know by how much, but I think CV needs a plus. I think they need to be +2 in turnovers, and they can't really give Manheim Township any extra motivation here. They need to be pretty flawless to win this game and to pull an upset. So we will see. It's going to be a good one. I can tell you that much. All right, let's move down to Central York High School, where the 8-2 Panthers welcome in the 7-3 Panthers of CDE. Maybe the most intriguing matchup, Dan, in 6A that we've got this week, to be honest with you. I mean, if you remember the Panthers actually scrimmaged Central York this season, so there's some familiarity there. However, I mean, can you accurately predict which CDE's team is going to kind of show up? I mean, the return of running back Jared Porter, by the way, all-state running back Jared Porter, has been a mystery for months now, really. Running back Leon Parson has not played. He was fantastic. He's been fantastic in filling Porter's role, really, as the workhorse back. Hasn't played in 3 weeks.
Bone, joint, and muscle injuries, they can happen without warning. That's why UPMC Orthopedic Care provides convenient walk-in access at our injury clinics throughout the region. No appointments are needed, just walk in for expert evaluation and exceptional care by our team of orthopedic specialists. Clinics are located in Carlisle, Lidditz, Harrisburg, and Enola. For directions and hours or to learn more, visit upmc.com/injuryclinic.
So what else can we expect out of CD East?
It's really tough, right? And again, this is kind of the opposite where not only did the CDs have a bye, but it's a bye after 3 straight losses, which
Yeah.
is really tough, I think. But maybe it gives them a chance to lick some wounds. I know that Leon Parson against Bishop McDevitt was playing, but he was playing wide receiver, not running back, which was
Mhm.
kind of an interesting wrinkle there. Um, which made me think they were getting ready to slot Porter in so they could have Porter and Parson on the field at the same time. But we still haven't seen Porter. Um, Literally got hurt on the first play of the season, which is
Yeah.
such a bummer because he's such a fun player to watch and he's such a good kid too. Um, yeah, I mean, Central York, on the other hand, um, it's the thing they always run into, right? Where when they get to their conference schedule, they're not really stretched out, right? They played Manheim Township this year and got beat pretty handily by them, but recovered in time for the start of the playoffs, and now we'll see. We'll see if their kind of momentum going into the playoffs can match up with the CD East lack of momentum there. Sort of. I've been impressed with their running back Legend Johnson on Central York. He looks like a player. We all know that if they get it anywhere close on the other side of the 50, they might be able to kick a field goal too with Matthew Parker
Yeah,
there. So
Parker, yeah.
I don't know. I don't have any feel of CD East. I've been really impressed by what Damaj Jallo's been able to do despite all the kind of uh, you know, difficulties surrounding him. But uh, this is one of those matchups where you just really don't know what it's going to look like until you see it.
Yeah, you mentioned Jala. I mean, we talked a lot about him during the season too, and I really like the way he's doing. The last couple weeks, though, it has seemed that he's been he's been a little bit hesitant, and I think, and I don't know if it's he doesn't trust himself or maybe the guys are on. But I know he's been limited to looking at Santana Young and really Zach Brown. I mean, those really are the two guys that he looks to or has available, outside, and maybe that's a product of not having Porter or maybe not having Parson, um, but uh, Jal is a kid that should trust himself. I mean, you know what I mean? He's got the skills. I think he can sort of let it loose a little bit more. Um, but obviously, Brown's going to be a key figure no matter what in this one because he's a guy that can apply pressure to Brooklyn Nace. If Nace is comfortable in the pocket, then this one is not going to be close.
Yeah.
It really isn't. I mean, Nace yes, he can manufacture yards with his legs, but he's a really good passer when he's got the time. Brendan Smith, their wideout, has been a problem for defenses all season long. Obviously, Saxton Sujanic is another guy. I think between Smith and Sujanic, that's 20 combined touchdown receptions. I mean, this is a very lethal offense if you allow it to be. So pressure on Brooklyn Nace and kind of keeping him shoved in there and not getting flushed out, I think is a really important part for East. And they have. I mean, East has gotten pressure on quarterbacks a lot this season. But a lot of those times, it's just solid quarterbacks and savvy quarterbacks making a play, getting flushed out of the pocket and making a play either with their arms or their legs. So they've got to prevent that from start to finish because this Central York team can score quickly with Nace under center. So I'm not sure here. I mean, again, you got to believe that CD East has a puncher's chance. I know it's on the road. I know it's coming off of 3 losses and all those things, but we've seen really strong efforts from East earlier in the season, and who knows? Maybe with an extra week to prepare, these guys come out with fire and take it to Central. I mean, Dallastown was the only team really during the regular season that gave Central. I mean, that was a misconversion that could have won it for Dallastown. So, but that's a 9-1 program. So we'll see. All right, moving on to 5A, Dan. We got a couple games to talk about here quickly. Coke Calico visits Mechanicsburg Friday night, John H. Frederick Field. What do you think of this one?
I'm on the Wildcats. I feel like they've got that little sprinkle of fairy dust right now. Um, Again, I've said it all year, but I just don't care about any schedule criticisms if you're
Right.
blowing out every other team. Like I just think that if you're dominating every game, that's what a good team would do against a bad schedule. So yeah, they're gonna have more difficult matchups in the playoffs. And Cacalco you could make an argument it's the toughest team they faced. I would say Shippensburg's a pretty darn good team too. So
Yep.
and they beat them pretty handily. Um, but I just think this Mechanicsburg team is at least getting to the next round. And who knows? I just been so impressed by the development of Eli Ryder, from a guy that just looked like he looked like the inexperienced quarterback he was a year ago. But he started to figure things out towards the end. Dave Heckard comes in and everything's just been totally unlocked for the team. So Josh Smith, one of the best players in the entire area. And that defense again, the defense is not getting the credit it deserves for how elite it's been all year. So I like the matchup for Mechanicsburg.
Yeah, you don't want to say, obviously you don't want to dismiss Cocalico's rushing attack. But again, it's they have to do what they do to be successful. And they've been successful. They got their I mean, hell, they're going for 3 straight district titles.
Yep.
So it's been successful. QB Josh Myers has been really good. Dane Horning's been really good. They're both over 1,100 yards rushing. They combined for 24 touchdowns. What they do at Cocalico works. But you're right. I think Mechanicsburg's victory over Shippensburg said the most it can say about the Wildcats because Shippensburg really is run dominated, but they can play a balanced offense as well. And that was a 21-point victory for me. You mentioned Eli Reader. He's been exceptional. Josh Smith is exceptional too. And we probably haven't given enough credit to the defensive guys, Bardo, Stair, these guys, Travis, that have really just dug in from the beginning. And I think if the Wildcats just continue to show that discipline and that assignment football that they've done all season long, I think they go beyond this round.
That's the thing. They've been one of the best coached teams. Like that's why when we talk about coach of the year, that's why I think that you have to put Mechanicsburg in there, even with the schedule. Just they have played such clean football all year, such clean football.
And again they play assignment. They play assignment football. You don't have linebackers just looking at each other going, I'm going. Which happens a lot for a lot of teams that we cover. Guys are just out of position or they're shooting gaps when they shouldn't be. Mechanicsburg does not do that. They handle what they need to handle. All 11 guys on both sides of the football. That's why they're 10-0. I mean, could we call Mechanicsburg the most talented team? Mid-Penn, no. But other teams that are maybe more talented are not 10-0. So that's got them there, and I think they'll continue that against Cocalico. All right, moving on, Dan. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say that's a good transition to Conrad Weiser if that's what you're doing.
Yes, let's transition to Conrad Weiser. 10-0 Conrad Weiser. Hosting. Devitt's not used to going on the road. Not in the postseason. Not in District 3, for sure. 9-2 Bishop McDevitt at 10-0 Conrad Weiser. Friday night, 7 o'clock. What do you think?
I mean, I like how McDevitt ended the season, which is weird to say because they ended the season with a loss and then they played Lower Dauphin, which was, no offense to any Falcons out there, but I think that was the expected outcome. But that state college game kind of showed not some sign of life because McDevitt's always in the mix. But that state college game to me showed that this team is ready to, not roll over for anybody, which I think is something that they've kind of missed a little bit in the playoffs this past year. last year. But the road thing is interesting. Going against a 10-0 team when McDevitt is not undefeated is interesting. Um, this this attack for Conrad Weiser is interesting because it's not like they really have one guy that beats you. It's
Right.
a lot of different dudes. They're a scheme team. Their quarterback Donovan Gingrich I think he's their leading rusher, if I'm not mistaken, and their leading passer. But they
Yep.
have a handful of guys with 200 to 400 yards. They're very similar to State College in that regard. And they're going to think that they should win this game. They're going to come in not afraid of Bishop McDevitt. They're going to say they're the 5A team. I think it's interesting because I think that's the other thing, though. I think that McDevitt does not have the sheen of invincibility in the district playoffs that it's had in years past.
Well, I agree with that too. And when I'm looking at Conrad Weiser, the scouts, I'm looking at 7.4 and 5.6. That's the average number of yards per carry by Gingrich, who you mentioned, the quarterback, and Javian Rivera. What I also see too is 120, as in total points allowed in 10 weeks. And obviously, this is going to be the most combustible offense that they have faced. But what I don't see really out of Conrad Weiser, it really is a schedule remotely close to the kind of week in and week out rumble that Bishop McDevitt went through 8-2. And one of those was a howitzer with State College, who's 9-1 overall. And the other one could have been a win against Harrisburg, which was the 2-point loss on a missed 2-point conversion. So that game could still be going on. So, this is a massive, massive test for Conrad Weiser. And yes, congrats on 10-0, but I just don't see, short of Bishop McDevitt breaking down really, because of all those weapons that they have. Any extra opportunity to score is really bad news for Conrad Weiser. So I think McDevitt goes on the road and gets a dub here. Real quick, Dan, Shippensburg plays at Conestoga Valley, another 10-0 squad. I think I know I've been impressed with what Joe Scapanzi's crew has done in 10 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've been 350 plus yards of offense each game. The offense is balanced. I think they punted 15 times in 480 minutes of football.
That'll check out.
Yeah, and I talked a little bit last week about Sawyer Espinshade, their quarterback. He's been really efficient all season, and yet Shippensburg has just been impressive too, Dan.
Yep, and it's kind of an interesting style matchup where, Conestoga Valley's got 23 passing touchdowns on the year. I think Shippensburg has 4, or maybe 4 on the year. Shippensburg's going to run the ball at Janai Stadium I know he's a little banged up, but what a year that kid's had, by the way. His brother, Jaden, was such a fun basketball player to watch. And now he's doing it on the football field. What the heck am I saying? Yeah, I'm covering a soccer game tonight in case you can't tell.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
But yeah, it's one. I think like a lot of times Shippensburg gets into these playoffs and it's a contrasting style of football because there aren't too many teams that can be as good as Shippensburg is when it's on playing the way they play, except for when they played Cedar Cliff in the semifinals and Jonte Morris ran the ball 45 times. It was beautiful. But I think I like Shippensburg to be able to shorten the game and make the game ugly. But I also think that Conestoga Valley is the type of team that can win that way too. I think that they're a team that can keep drives alive. It's they're capable of big plays, but they're also capable of mixing things up, like you said, with that balanced attack. They're another team that has 5 guys with over 100 rushing yards and no one over 500. And no huge receiving numbers either. They just have a lot of guys that can do a lot of different things. So it's going to be kind of a battle of 3 to 4 names on Shippensburg doing a lot versus a lot of different people on Conestoga Valley.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just going to give you the heads up. This game will be a pick'em.
Yeah. That's why I was kind of waffling. I have no real idea.
Yeah, I just think it's one of those scrums, it could be a 21-20 either way kind of games. I really believe that. It should be a really good one, though. All right, we're going to do one 4A game quick, just because it has all kind of shine and gold and all this thing. It's Twin Valley visiting Susquehanna Township, 7 p.m. Friday at Roscoe Warner Field off of Elmerton Avenue. That's near the shops at Susquehanna, Dan. This one, listen, this one has all the looks of a pinball classic, like one of those, like maybe the old school Magnum PI glass or the Van Halen motif. You know what I mean? This one's gonna be rocking. What do you think?
Well, Twin Valley's one of those teams that did not end the regular season probably the way they would have liked, right? Losing 2 of 3. They did rally back to crush Daniel Boone. I believe that they were missing a ton of starters though in a couple of those losses.
Against Lampeter Strasburg, they were very short, yes.
Yeah, and I just think that it's hard to kind of figure out where Susquehanna Township is at any given time because there's such a they come at you in waves, right? So there are moments in their games where they don't look very impressive. And then all of a sudden, they just have a big 70-yard play, or they force a turnover, or they make kind of the play at the right time. And then all of a sudden, they're right back in the game or, winning by 25 points. I've just been really impressed throughout his career, really, with Twin Valley's quarterback Evan Myers. He's just been a really good player for them for a long time. Son of the coach Brett Myers. He's probably going to be, you could say, maybe the best quarterback Susquehanna Township has faced this year without looking at their schedule. I'd have to double check, but that seems to be a pretty fair statement to say. He's a really good player. And I'm again, it's another one of these games where I just need to see it. I'm going to be probably picking whoever's the underdog in most of these games because I think they're so close. And so I want to try to make some ground up on the pick. So, I'm really fascinated. I do think they need to get Lex Cyrus more involved. He only had 2 touches against Milton Hershey. It's the playoffs. It's time to get him the ball. He needs 5 to 10 touches every game. So I think if Susquehanna Township's going to win, Lex is going to have to be heavily involved.
I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. It's also, I'm a big fan of Brett Myers. Obviously, most know him. He came in, turned his alma mater, Middletown, around, took them to three straight PIAA championship games as a 90-10 rushing attack. And now, obviously, with his son Evan Myers under center at Twin Valley, it's a whole different animal there now. It's wide open attack. They can score from all points of the field. And this one could be pretty combustible with Susquehanna Township. For the Indians too, I'm like you. I think I would like to see their rushing attack be in a little better shape or a little bit more involved, if you will. At this point, I think you can. We know Torrin Evans, the quarterback, can handle a boatload of pressure. We get that, and he's an unbelievable playmaker. But to kind of take some of the pressure off of him, particularly in early downs, I think would be something that Hannah really needs moving forward and might need in this football game because Twin Valley, after you mentioned those 2 late losses to Wyomissing and Lampeter Strasburg, and really both games weren't close at all. I think the bye week is a chance for them to sort of for those 2 losses to fester. And I think they're going to be really ready coming into Warner Field on Friday. So that'd be one that we're looking closely at for sure. All right, folks. Well, we'll have more features, obviously, in playoff previews all week long at PennLive.com. That includes Steel High's quest for a 5th straight District 3 title. This one would be their first 2A in program history. That comes Friday at Donegal High School when the Rollers take on Lancaster Catholic in the 2A championship round. We thank you, as always, for joining us on PA High School Football Report. Get out there and watch some football. Buy a raffle ticket or a hot dog or a walking taco, whatever they're serving. It all helps support these student athletes. For Dan Sostek, I'm Eric Epler. Thanks for listening, and we'll see all you guys next week.
Bone, joint, and muscle injuries, they can happen without warning. That's why UPMC Orthopedic Care provides convenient walk-in access at our injury clinics throughout the region. No appointments are needed, just walk in for expert evaluation and exceptional care by our team of orthopedic specialists. Clinics are located in Carlisle, Lidditz, Harrisburg, and Enola. For directions and hours or to learn more, visit upmc.com/injuryclinic.